Now the extraordinary twist in the murder case behind the Serial podcast. Officials have dropped all charges against Adnan Syed after he spent 23 years in prison, saying his case is now over. The Maryland prosecutor dropped the case, is standing by. First, TJ has the details. Good morning, TJ.
And George, you used the word extraordinary. This is an extraordinary case of police, prosecutors, and podcasters. A case where it's the podcasters this time, not the police and prosecutors, who actually did the job of seeking truth and justice. And this morning, it is official. Adnan Syed was wrongfully convicted of murder.
Adnan Syed, a free man this morning. All charges dropped against the once convicted murderer who was the subject of the wildly popular podcast Serial.
This is a prepaid call from
Adnan Syed.
Interviewed on a prison phone for the podcast and always maintaining his innocence for the 1999 murder of his high school ex-girlfriend, Hae-Min Lee.
I mean, no way I had absolutely nothing to do with Hayes' murder.
He is elated. He is joyful. There have been so many ups and downs over the past 23 years. So he is really just taking it all in. But he's incredibly grateful for all of the people who have supported him and believed in him over the years.
He got his first taste of freedom last month when a judge overturned his murder conviction after a year-long investigation revealed 2 other possible suspects and accusations that former prosecutors withheld crucial evidence. He's been on house arrest ever since. Seen here the day of his release, experiencing leftovers for the first time in decades.
What are these? Those are dumplings we got yesterday.
Now, no longer on house arrest, no longer having to wear an ankle monitor.
This is what we eventually expected would happen after he was released. We just didn't expect it to happen so quickly.
His childhood friend, Rabia Chaudhry, who first brought Syed's case to the Serial creators, speaking for the first time in an interview since the charges were dropped.
He's the same person he was when he was incarcerated at 17. He hasn't come out like a bitter, angry person. He's come out the same really kind, easygoing, and just forgiving person all these years. But he's just kind of been enjoying his freedom, eating whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and lurking on social media and learning to use a laptop and things like that. It's been kind of a soft entry.
The 41-year-old spent more than half of his life behind bars. Now modern DNA testing of new items at the crime scene revealed no DNA from Syed, helping secure his release.
What has happened to Adnan is tragic and horrible, but it is incredibly common. It has shined a light on a wrongdoing that happened to Adnan, but happens to criminal defendants all over the country.
And yeah, Syed's family, they are celebrating today, but we have to remember that he's not the only victim of injustice here. Remember the family of the victim here, Hae-Min Lee. Her family is now being told after 20 years that the person that killed their loved one is possibly still out there. And George, as her brother put it in one of the hearings, this is not a podcast for me. This is real life, and it's been a never-ending 20-plus-year nightmare.
No question about that. Okay, TJ, thanks. Let's bring in Marilyn Mosby, State's Attorney for the City of Baltimore. Thanks for joining us this morning. So no DNA. The DNA test appears to be conclusive. Are you convinced that Syed had nothing to do with Lee's killing?
So, when you consider all of the sort of major red flags, this case we were approached by the Public Defender's Office, my sentencing review unit, one of the only in the country, over a year ago to modify the sentence under the Juvenile Restoration Act, for which he qualified because he was a juvenile when he was convicted and he spent 22 years in prison. Our review of the case quickly turned from making a mere sort of recommendation for release to a reinvestigation into a claim of actual innocence because there were major sort of red flags. We saw this, and substantively, as we started to delve into the case, one of the things that we saw was that not all of the evidence was tested. And so the first round of DNA testing, we didn't produce results. But following the completion, as you've already noted, of the second round of DNA, we found that there was a DNA mixture of multiple contributors, and they excluded Adnan Syed, right? And so when you couple that with all of the other major sort of reliability issues in this case, from, that call into question the integrity from the beginning, the Attorney General's office failing to disclose relevant information on the alternative suspects, one of whom threatened to kill and had motive to kill this victim, both of whom had a pattern of violence against women and sexual assault, the improper clearance of the suspects by investigators based on faulty polygraph tests, the faulty cell site information that is used today that was used then that wouldn't be be used today, and the detective that was implicated in a wrongful conviction before, there are so many red flags. And this was really the nail in the coffin that assured me, which is why I instructed my prosecutors to dismiss the case yesterday.
So did the DNA implicate those other two suspects?
So it's an open and pending case. And, you know, as you all have noted, you know, this family, this poor family, I have so much empathy for them. They have for 23 years believed that this was the individual that committed this heinous offense against their beautiful loved one. And now they're being told that, you know, evidence was withheld. And now they're being told that we are going to release the individual that they believed committed this offense. And so, you know, my top priority is to find the perpetrators of the individuals and the individuals that killed this beautiful young woman. And so it's an open and pending investigation, and I have dedicated my time, my resources to ensuring that we receive justice on behalf of that family.
You said that the DNA excluded Syed. Why can't you say whether or not it implicates the other two suspects?
Because it's an open and pending investigation and they have not yet been charged.
Are you going to formally declare Syed's innocence?
So this is a process by which the defense attorneys have to avail themselves. And once they do, I intend to, yes.
Would this have all happened but for the Serial podcast?
To be honest with you, George, I never even listened to the Serial podcast. Understanding and recognizing my role as the state attorney for Baltimore City and that this fell within my jurisdiction, I never wanted to be biased in my perspective. This happened because I created a unit that reviews and modifies the sentences of juvenile lifers in the elderly prison population. Again, that's turned from modification of sentence, and we've already released over 40 individuals that have not, our juvenile lifers in elderly prison population that have not recidivated. My conviction integrity unit, which was the first in the state of Maryland, we've already exonerated 12 individuals. Adnan is a 13th. And so, you know, this happened because we put in the time, the resources, we collaborated with the public defender's office, and we ensured justice in this case.
Marilyn Mosby, thanks very much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.